Another thing the powers that be have created is called MAD.
Mad?
Yes, MAD. M-A-D. Mutual Assured Destruction. I read about it in the public library.
I think my old dad was in the mutual assured insurance. A penny a week it was in those days.
This isn't insurance, Dux.
I think it covered the cost of the funeral.
Yes, well, I suppose this is similar. It all comes out of our taxes.
He had a lovely funeral, our dad. You don't pay any taxes now. You're retired, James.
No, I'm fully paid up. My funeral is fully assured.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We're your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we're talking about When the Wind Blows from 1986, based on the Raymond Briggs comic from 1982, or graphic novel, but they didn't call it that. In fact, in the movie they just call it based on the book.
Yes.
I noticed in the credit. I don't know anything about Raymond Briggs. He was born in 1934, died in 2022 at the age of 88.
Amazing, actually. That's very recent.
And
still publishing up. I think his last book was published in 2019.
Right. Most famously had this Snowman comic picture book that got made into a half-hour special that runs every Christmas.
Every Christmas in the UK and apparently Finland. In another one of those cases of comics properties getting a weird second life in some random Scandinavian country.
Yeah. I just want to point out that he would have been, like 10 years old during World War II.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a relevant fact
100%.
as we work through this.
100%.
Also, you might ask, why are we doing this? Well, we did Golgo, we did From Inside, I've got Iran and nukes on the brain, even the Hulk to a certain extent.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a famous kind of like anti-nuke story.
So the book came out in 82, movie came out in 86. We had a thing in North America, a TV movie called The Day After.
Yeah.
That was 83. That was our big nuke movie.
Yes.
And then the UK had Threads in 84, which is...
Have you ever seen Threads?
I keep wanting to. It's the horror movie that everyone is still talking about.
Yeah.
They're still talking about it all the time. I hear it mentioned all the time. But this one kind of pops up once in a while too.
Yes.
But I had never heard of Briggs really. But he seems to be one of those guys that has like a mainstream comic, a bit like Raina Telgemeier now, where her books are just like every kid's getting the Scholastic books.
I read Raymond Briggs' books when I was in school.
Okay.
So one of the, like Asterix, Raymond Briggs' books were on the shelves at public libraries, like the school library and the public library.
Okay.
Because I guess they weren't really considered to be comics.
Yes.
Like you would never see a Phantom comic.
Right.
But these weren't considered comics, they were considered more like books. So the two ones that I read over and over were Fungus the Bogeyman and Gentleman Jim.
Okay.
Gentleman Jim actually features the same character as from When the Wind Blows. So it's the same guy.
Oh.
Jim and Hilda are the same characters.
How interesting.
Yep. So Gentleman Jim is an earlier story. Jim cleans toilets and has fantasies of being a highwayman.
Huh.
And the story's just about him... Again, his kind of like bucolic lower middle class values running up against his fantasies.
Do you think he had a caste system? Like they were like a repertory theater where he used the same actors in different roles, or is that the same character in both books?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is he based Jim and Hilda on his own parents.
Okay.
So they occupied a specific place in his mental landscape.
Okay.
And in fact, he went on to write a third comic, or graphic novel, or whatever you want to call it, or a book with comic storytelling layout and tropes, called... Ethel and Ernest.
Okay.
So Ethel and Ernest is explicitly a book about his parents.
Okay, right.
That one came out in the 90s, I think, perhaps late 90s. And it too was made into a movie.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so we can add it to the list.
Huh.
So the Snowman So, yeah, he has form in having his work adapted to...
Yes, right. And he's, in fact, the writer of this movie, I noticed as well. He's the only listed writer.
Because it almost exclusively uses dialogue from the comic.
But it means he sat down and
he must have been involved
for it, yeah.
I watched a short documentary on the making of it. Didn't mention that specific angle, but absolutely not surprising, because it doesn't have any content that doesn't appear in the comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Briggs's books were in the library, and I read them. They're not... Gentleman Jim I don't think is not strictly for children, but it's shelved in the children's...
Yeah.
And even Fungus the Bogeyman, it has a lot of Shakespearean references, and like the Bogeymen speak exclusively in like Shakespearean prose.
Right.
And it's just that it's about a subterranean race of bogeymen that prey on humankind by pranking them, essentially. By doing all the things that we're terrified of.
Right.
Kind of like Monsters, Inc.
Right.
It's a bit like an early Monsters, Inc.
Yep.
They go out at night, and the book's just all about their filthy habits. It's written in kind of like it's written in a kind of like an analytical, descriptive style, as though it were like a documentary.
Right.
About bogeymen. Anyway, it's a great book. I loved it as a kid.
Okay.
Anyway, so Briggs there was a third book. There was yet another book while I'm on my Briggs nostalgia run, and nostalgia is relevant to this film, so it's okay 100%. That I'm doing this. There was another book that was in the library, which was called The Tin Pot General and the Iron Woman, I think, and this is a book about the Falklands War.
Right.
It's not for kids.
Yeah.
It's just a satire of Margaret Thatcher, but because it was a picture book, it was shelved, and we all love this book because. There's that old guns going off, and the Iron Lady was wearing no clothes.
I think that's very relevant to today's discussion of what
this is.
People make of war and how they think about war in the past, or what do they know about the present. I had I sometimes save random images on my computer just when I'm scrolling through some feed or other.
Yep.
And I had this one, I was organizing my files for this recording. Where's the comic, where's the movie? And I opened this one from the Diary of Franz Kafka. This is from 2 August 1914. It says, August 2, 1914. Germany has declared war on Russia, went swimming in the afternoon. And I was like, whoa, that's some kismet right there.
Yeah.
For that to just happen to be saved on my desktop for months ago, and for me to randomly open it today.
Relevant. Way to raise the tone, too. That's good.
Okay, so this is about, as we mentioned, James and Hilda. They are an elderly couple that is retired to the country in England. I don't think we get Hilda's name until really late.
I think their surname is Bloggs.
Yes, but we don't get Hilda's first name. She's always called Ducky, Deer, something like that, until the very end. And when he walks in the front door, they've got a portmanteau sign which says Jamilda, is the sign on the front of their house, which I thought was a bit weird, prescient, I don't know. Okay, so Jim has been retired for a while. He's gone to the library, and he takes the bus back home. He's arriving back home, and he's been reading in the newspapers about increased tensions between Russia.
The international situation.
International situation. Hilda doesn't care about any of this. She only looks at the newspapers for the horoscopes, for the stars, she says. And Jim is he's kind of vaguely aware of this stuff. He doesn't have a full understanding of it. There's lots of malapropisms, misunderstandings about it.
So Jim is very earnest.
Yes.
But he actually has a very limited understanding of what is going on in the world. And he has a naive, almost childlike faith in government.
Yes.
In authority.
Yes.
So it's kind of very English, or very stereotypically English.
Yeah.
He believes unconditionally in the messages that in the goodness of authority, in its awareness of him and his plight, and in the advice that government gives to deal with the apocalypse, which is what they are going to face in this story.
So another thing about this is he has so much faith in government that when he comes home and he's like, well, this thing's going to happen, it's out of our hands. the government's going to do this thing. It's all done by a committee. And he says then the commuters are going to take over. He means computers,
he does.
but he says commuters. But he's like, oh, that's all done by the government. So he's kind of okay with it.
Yes.
Because it's like there's nothing we can do about it.
On the other hand, he's very aware that he has a responsibility to do exactly what the powers that be, as he calls them, want him to do. He talks often about his duty.
Yes.
So he has these pamphlets.
Yes.
That he's got from the library.
Sometimes contradictory.
Yes.
The federal pamphlet will have different information from the council pamphlet.
Yeah.
One says, take down your curtains.
Yes.
One says, paint your curtains. Or something.
So it says, take down curtains. The other one says, make sure your curtains are white or something like that. So contradictory.
One says, put something soft over the curtains or something like that. And he's like looking at these two, I'm not sure.
He can't process it.
He can't process it, exactly.
So he has complete faith in authority, and he has a special faith in these pamphlets, one of which is the Protect and Survive pamphlet that was put out by the British national government, which was a real pamphlet, which was leaked in the early 80s, I think by the Times. And there was a scandal, because everyone immediately became aware, in a way that Jim is not, but a lot of people in the UK at the time immediately became aware that the advice in these pamphlets was ridiculous.
Right.
It was things like, build a pillow fort to survive a nuclear holocaust.
I think that the ridiculousness of the pamphlets is what this book is about.
Yes, it's one of the things
that's the inspiration behind it, because I think Briggs is like, our government is giving this kind of information to these people who are out in the country and are, I don't want to call them yokels. We have to talk about what he thinks about his characters.
Yes, well, Briggs himself said in an interview that I saw with him that these people, these characters that he's populated this story with, these two characters, are simple and uneducated.
Right.
He said they're not stupid.
Right.
At least partly because he based them on his own parents.
Yeah.
But he said they're working class, simple, and have a certain naivety.
Yes. So, in fact, the government needs to be giving them better information. They're giving them nonsense.
Well, that's the thing.
They're partly to blame here.
100%. Well, yes, absolutely. It's a satire of the absurdity of instructions to survive the apocalypse. So when this Protect and Survive pamphlets came out, it was a scandal, because this is not, on the one hand, nation states are what cause wars. And on the other hand, the British nation state is providing this advice to survive the war.
Yes.
These things cannot be reconciled.
That's right.
This is an absurdity.
Yes.
So in the early 80s, there was a lot of barbed mocking of this pamphlet appearing across all sorts of media, including the young ones.
Oh, right, okay.
There's an episode of The Young Ones where they're trying to follow the advice in this pamphlet.
Right.
The episode called Bomb. So things like building taking the doors down off your house and building the inner shelter or refuge.
Yes.
Which Jim universally refers to as the inner shelter or refuge. He never refers to
refuge. That's right.
He never refers to it as one or the other. Always that complete sentence.
Yes. Well, he's very literal like that. Like there's one point where there's a list of items they need to bring. It says misc and all these things miscellaneous.
What's a misc?
And he says, and then he brings it in, his wife, into the shelter or refuge, and wife says, "What's that?" He says, "I don't know. It's the misc." But at the same time, he says, the bomb at Hiroshima was 1,000 times hotter than the sun. That's quite hot.
Yeah.
So even when he has the information, he's very naive about it.
Yes, that's right. He's incapable. He's very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, he's collected a lot of minutiae and trivia, which he's very confident in reproducing, although he often muddles it up and will make a malapropism or get an acronym wrong.
Yes.
And yet, at the same time, he's not even aware of what he's saying. He'll say, there's going to be, I need to make the windows right because of radiation. Mm. But then that's as far as he takes that.
Yeah.
He never asks himself what radiation is or why painting the windows.
No, they don't know what radiation, they don't know what fallout is. Science is another thing that has two sides. So, for example, at the end, she says, when they come out after the bomb's gone, she says, the sun, at least the sun hasn't been blown. They didn't blow up the sun. He says science is still in its infancy.
Yes.
But then later he says...
And earlier. He says that science has made leaps and bounds.
That's right. And he says, well, when the rescue teams come, they'll just probably spray us with something and we'll be fine.
Yep.
That's what science has gotten to.
Yeah.
That's the stage of science is at. So
he's not a deep thinker. He has only a peripheral... He only has a surface level understanding of these things, all this stuff he's read. Having said that, these characters are deeply sympathetic.
Yes.
They are just adorable.
Yes.
They're like your parents. They're
yes,
they're people that have lived a good, like a decent life, and have retired to the country.
Yeah.
They haven't kept pace with the change in the world situation through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
And now they have this childlike almost trust in the institutions.
In fact, trust in Stalin.
Well, this is the other thing about them. They romanticize the past.
Yes.
So you describe them as elderly. They're the 1980s version of elderly.
Right.
So I think they're in their late 50s.
He's retired though.
Well, you could retire at 55 in the 80s.
Okay.
So I think they're in their late 50s, early 60s because they were children in the 40s.
Yes.
So they have children's memories of the Blitz.
Yep.
And for them, it's a grand adventure.
Yes.
This is their childish memories of war. Like, it's almost like Major General Win Candy.
Yeah, I thought about that. I absolutely thought about Colonel Blimp.
So they're talking about hanging out in the shelters that you had to build during the air raids, and how it was a grand lark, and how in those days the Russians were on their side, and Uncle Joe was their friend. He was a sympathetic figure to them.
And he had a nice mustache and a cigar.
Yeah.
They say, remember his nice mustache? You knew where he stood with the man with the cigar and a nice mustache. And they don't know who the current prime minister is. They can't remember or anything like that. I want to just read this one caption where they're reminiscing about the war and their shelters. He had pinups of girls around.
He was probably a teen, right? Yeah.
And he said, and they were saying, it's an interesting word balloon, where it's coming out of both of their mouths at the same time. Yes, it was nice in the war, really. The shelters, the blackout, the all clear. I should do it in a voice, but I can't. Cups of tea, the ARP, evacuees, London kids seeing cows for the first time. Old Churchill on the wireless, 9 o'clock news, virulent singing away. Workers' playtime, ITMA, Spitfires, hurricanes in the blue sky over the cornfields, white cliffs of Dover, old Jerry coming over every night. Those were the days.
Those were the days. Nostalgia. These are people for whom their only preparation and understanding of what a nuclear holocaust will be is their half-formed memories from their childhood.
Yes, they just think it's going to be a bigger bomb.
Yeah.
It's not going to have any other effect. It's not going to be as big as it actually is. They just think it's going to be bigger than the bombs we had back then. We got through it then. It's very much keep calm and carry on, 100%. Stiff upper lip,
100%.
All those kind of Britishisms.
They say things like, we'll just have to knuckle down.
Shoulder to the wheel, he says at one point.
Or at one point he just rattles off a whole list of cliches.
And she kind of applauds him.
Yes. She should be a politician.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, So Jim's making his preparations in accordance with his pamphlets.
Yes.
And Hilda's a bit exasperated by all of it, doesn't really believe in any of it, but she goes along with him.
And she's very upset that he's going to dirty her curtains.
Yep.
Or dirty her cushions.
He talks about how he needs to put on a white shirt because at Hiroshima, the people that were wearing white suffered fewer burns, and if they wore a patterned shirt, the darker areas on the pattern were burned into their skin. So he can recite this information, but he doesn't understand really.
Yeah.
He just thinks, I'll put on a white shirt and I'll be all right. So, and she's like, no, you can't put on your good white shirt, the one I got you for Christmas. Save it for after the bomb.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of talk about it. Even after the bomb's gone off, they're like, I'll go down to the shops tomorrow to get something for the soil, because the soil's ruined.
That's it.
And she's like, won't the shop be closed? She's like, old Mr. Smith, he never closed. He'd die rather than be shut.
Because, of course, he has.
Yes.
There's a lot of that in the second
There's
half.
a moments of some very bleak humor, like when they're talking about their son, Ron, who lives in London, who we know from one line has associated with hippies, maybe, or that's just what his mom
He went
thinks.
to art school.
But it wasn't even an art school. It was like for engineering or something. And she's like,
Well, I think it was art school in the film, and I think he went to engineering.
And she says he was hanging out with beatniks. That's what she accuses him of.
Blessed beatniks. She never swears. She considers blimey to be a swear
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. She never says cursed. She always says blessed.
Well, so what happens is after Jim makes all his preparations, and then it's announced. We see some in the comic. We have panels of ominous-looking machinery of war.
Yes. So let me just briefly describe the art. So the art is in a cartoony style. Characters have dots for eyes, but they are done. The pages have 7 tiers of panels. These are very small.
They are very small.
They're pancake panels with lots of dialogue in them. And then every once in a while, you will turn the page and get this 2-page black spread, and initially it's quite colorful, but you turn it, you get this very black spread
of a bomber flying at night.
A bomber, or a submarine, or a missile waiting to launch.
Always at night.
Yes, in the dark. It
is a big contrast to the very colourful
and cramped panels. Yes, there's very ominous. Here's this big thing that's overwhelming.
Yes.
Sorry. So we're.
I was just saying. Yeah. Well, he makes his preparations, and because he's read in the paper or heard on the wireless that it's going to be 3 days. The Prime Minister has said 3 days before the likely onset of some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
So he's following all his instructions diligently, while rattling off his half-remembered factoids about about mutually assured destruction and about NORAD and NATO, etc., etc. And then over the wireless comes. There's an interruption and there's an announcement that a missile has been launched at the United Kingdom and that it has 3 minutes to arrive. So then he bundles Hilda into the shelter. Like, he's trying to get her to go into the shelter. She won't go in because she wants to go and bring the laundry in off the line.
Yes. And also she wants a toilet.
Yeah.
She refuses to go in there because she's going to leave. According to him, they're supposed to stay in there 14 days.
Yes.
According to one of the pamphlets.
And this is absurd because it's like a cubby house that a kid would make. Yeah, it's a
pillow fort.
He's just put 3 doors against the wall at a 60-degree angle, which he was very particular about. He went down the shops to buy.
He didn't even know what an angle was, and he had to call his son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he says that he's telling Hilda that they're going to stay in this lean-to for 14 days, which is they don't have food for 14 days, they don't have water for 14 days.
Yeah.
This thing can't fit people for 14 days.
Yeah.
It's about 3 cubic meters.
Yeah.
And
she even comments, what if we had kids?
Yes.
What if they were skinheads with their boots?
Yes.
You wouldn't be able to fit them in there.
Yes. I expect you'll just cradle them, he says. Yeah. Jim has an answer for everything.
Yeah.
He has an answer for everything and it's always wrong.
Yes.
It's so
like when her hair starts falling out, spoiler.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, my hair's falling. He says, don't worry, women can't lose their hair.
Women don't go bald, he just says.
Yeah, that's it. Factoid, solution, don't worry. It's always, don't worry, no big deal, things will be fine.
Or all the authorities are responsible.
Yes.
So after the bomb has struck, the water's off, obviously, and the electricity's off, obviously. But his explanation for those is always that, there's rationing. I imagine for the state of emergency, for the duration of the emergency, they'll need to conserve power. When the milkman doesn't come, because the milkman's been vaporised, he says, he's probably been called up to assist in the emergency services.
Yeah.
Things like that. I would be doing it myself if I lived closer to London.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just... And then when Hilda's bleeding from the mouth because... her gums have started to bleed because, as you said, spoilers, she has radiation sickness. He says, it's just your dentures not fitting properly.
Yeah.
And when they get sick, he's just like, well, this is to be expected. Bombs are going to rattle us.
Yes.
We're just feeling a bit out of sorts because the bombs. He always has an answer. It's so... He has this childlike confidence in his own knowledge, but also in what he's been told.
Yes.
He doesn't question authority in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. Because he's fundamentally... They're both just such good people who have just really done everything right. You are supposed to be able to trust in authority.
That's right.
And it's the world... But you can't.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can't is the tragedy of this story because, of course, it's authority that's led to this terrible situation they find themselves in. They go in the lean-to. There's a brilliant storytelling device where the panels get brighter and brighter and brighter towards the bottom right corner of the page, where eventually it becomes pure white. Then we have 2 pages of white.
Yeah, the blast.
Which is the blast.
Yeah. And then a very interesting return out of the blast, where you get the lean-to in this very kind of warped, repeated image of it, almost like... I don't know how to describe that kind of art, where it's just it's almost like a Andy Warhol kind of repeat of this thing in a warped shape until it straightens out at the bottom of the page.
Yes, and it's and very red.
Yeah.
To show, to show the terrible.
But by the way, we don't see any we didn't see anybody vaporized. We don't see anything out on the street.
We never see another person except for Hilda and Jim.
That's right. We only see them in their house. Momentarily in their garden.
Yes. So, They come out of the lean-to. Well, they stay in it for a bit, and there's more of this kind of discussion.
They think they're supposed to stay in there 14 days, and then the day after they sleep there, And then they wake up, and the next morning they're really like, oh, I've got a bad headache.
Yes.
And they wander out like they've forgotten that they were supposed to stay in there.
But you couldn't stay in there for 14
No,
days.
no, of course not.
Absurd.
And then he finds contradictory information in a different leaflet anyway.
It says 48 hours.
48 hours.
Yeah.
So,
but that's not long enough for Fallout. It probably was 14 days. But how could you spend... This advice is ridiculous.
But what's a lean-to doing anyway? It's just a pillow fort.
Yes.
It's literally a pillow fort.
Yes.
It's not going to stop any radiation. These people are already radiated.
Yes. The thing is, they're already dead.
Yes.
Unfortunately, sadly, they're already dead, but they just don't know. And now we see them go through their death throes, always insisting that everything's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Jim especially.
The book is about 42 pages. The bomb hits around page 22.
Yep.
23, like around the halfway or 1/3 mark.
And we just see them, like, Jim's in, as I said, in total denial. They go out in the yard and at one point they smell what is, if you're reading between the lines, is probably burning corpses.
Yep.
And Jim's saying, like, oh, people are probably just having their Sunday roasts early.
Early because of the bomb.
Because of the bomb.
Yeah.
Like, this bomb they live quite far out in the country, so they have no neighbours or anything like that. Raymond Briggs said that was partly so that he could tell their story of isolation more effectively, but he said it was also partly so he wouldn't have to draw more than 2 characters.
Yeah, right.
But, so we never see... I mean, it's pretty... Again, reading between the lines, it's pretty explicit that everyone else is dead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone else is, like, in the... dead or dying.
They're just like, the newspaper's not here.
Like, they're shocked that the newspaper hasn't come.
Yeah.
But then Jim will say, it's to be expected in the state of emergency. They've probably prioritised those resources.
Yeah.
No, there are no resources. The newspaper man has been vaporised.
Yeah.
The milkman has been vaporised.
And then he's like, the mail will start coming tomorrow. We don't have to worry.
He says, during the Blitz it always came.
Yes, that's right. He just thinks things will be like the old days. By the way, they keep confusing the Germans and the Russians.
Yes.
They keep thinking they're being attacked by the Russians.
Yes.
Sometimes she'll say the Jerrys, and he'll correct her and say, no, the Ruskies. But by the end of the same balloon, he'll be saying
Jerrys. Yeah. They're just so helpless.
Yes,
helpless.
That's a good word for it. Maybe the best word for it.
They do things like go out in the yard and notice that all the leaves have fallen off the tree and that the grass looks dead and that the tarmac on the road has begun to melt. Yeah. Because of the terrific heat. Yes. He doesn't say terrific. He says terrific. Terrific heat. But they never... They just... It's absurd, actually, that they never actually come to terms with what they're really seeing, which is that they're seeing the end of the world.
I think it's interesting, because after the bomb... on that day where they finally come out of the lean-to... then everything's really dirty and messed up. Like, stuff's shattered, yes, but the panels are very tiny.
Yes, I think that really helps.
Oh, yeah. Because you don't get a sense of...
destruction.
Yes. Because
because the panels are so small, their home just looks like it's got... Like, it still looks very... It doesn't look unkempt. It still looks more or less normal.
Yes.
Which means that you can suspend this... Like, it seems plausible that they're... Which is something that I don't think that's carried over to the film, which is probably the point you were making.
And she's like, I better tidy up in case we get visitors.
I should just straighten up.
What if we get visitors?
Or when the emergency services come. Jim never gives up on the idea that the emergency services are just around the corner. Yeah. He has total faith that they're mobilising. Yeah.
And they're just going to spray them and they're going to feel better.
Yep. Because, of course, they notice that they're getting sick. Yeah. And by, the third day... They have very little energy. They've used up all their water.
Well, they didn't use any of their water. Their water evaporated.
Well, they put it in uncorked bottles that all got knocked over in the blast. Yeah. So they had no water. Yeah. Then they collect rain. In the comic, this sort of it's just dealt with in a few panels. But that rainwater was almost certainly radioactive.
Yes, and she says, are you sure it's safe to drink that? And he says, of course. Rainwater is the most natural thing there is.
Nothing's purer than rainwater.
And she says, don't stay out there in the rain, you'll catch your death, she said.
There's a lot of that kind of talk.
And, he says it'll be over in a flash. You bet it will be. Yeah.
So, and then, they get sicker and sicker, and then eventually they start bleeding. There's a very ghoulish page, very close to the end, which didn't make it into the film, where Jim sings a song to cheer Hilda up. While bleeding from the mouth and looking like a vampire.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, you're getting blood on your shirt.
That's what she says. She says, you're messing up your good shirt.
Yeah.
And then her hair starts falling out, and all he can say is that women don't go bald. What are you talking about? You've got nothing to worry about.
She gets diarrhea, and he says, "Oh, it's just nerves."
Yeah,
even I've got it, and I'm a man.
That's the thing he says a lot too. I'm a man, and I got it.
Yeah.
So you know that it's okay because I got it too.
Yeah.
It's not just womanly nerves.
Yeah. One panel that I found quite chilling was when when they emerge from the lean-to, they go through the radio, the TV, the transistor. She's like, well, they should at least put the cereals on. Her Women's Day cereals.
Well, they're always... yeah.
And I'm like, boy, this really struck home in 2025. Like, what's on streaming? What movies at the cinema? Everything goes on. It struck Kafka. I'm going to go for a swim.
Yeah, I'm going for a swim.
That, to me, really was like, oh yeah, that hasn't changed. You can hardly blame her for wanting her serials to be on, despite everything else in the news.
Yeah.
And the nuclear bomb that's about to drop.
But it's like,
or that has dropped.
It has dropped. A bomb's literally gone off, but they're talking about it. They always say things like, oh, I'm going down the shops.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'll go down the shop and get some blood and bone.
Yeah.
Or I'll go down and get some more throat pastilles tomorrow.
Batteries for the radio.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the one hand, the juxtaposition, like the incongruity of him rattling off, he uses the word megadeath.
Yep.
There are deaths in the millions.
Yep.
So he's aware,
and he talks about megaton bombs. He talks about overkill.
Yes.
Is when you have to kill more than the millions that you're trying to kill.
Oh, he even talks about how the government, because of the energy crisis, this is funny, to show how surface level his understanding of these issues is. He talks about the energy crisis and said, we'll be safe because the government will have to use the smallest possible bombs.
Oh my god, I shouldn't be laughing. It's so sad and brutal.
Yes.
It is.
It's so blackly comic.
Yeah. The blackest of black, as Spinal Tap said. None more black. Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, in the final
there's a whole quote-unquote hilarious conversation about mutually assured destruction. She assumes it has something to do with insurance.
Yes.
And her father's funeral. Yeah. And he says, don't worry, my funeral is assured. Yes, it is.
He's all paid up. He's all paid up.
Oh, yeah. And then they're worried about Ron in London. And he's like, was he insured? And she's like, have you paid our insurance? He's like, yeah. We won't have to pay anything for this bomb.
No, you won't.
No, you won't. Yeah.
Because civilization's destroyed.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
There's so much of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is funny, but you're not laughing when you're reading it.
No.
It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're in very dire straits. They've got the lesions from the radiation poisoning on their legs and arms. Her hair's falling out. They're bleeding from the gums. And they go into the lean-to one last time, and then she asks him to pray, and he still can't get it right. He can't.
His brain's gone.
Well, that's part of it. They're very sick. But also it's consistent with the way he's been all the way through the book.
Right.
He can't remember the Lord's Prayer. He starts saying what the priest says, like, Dearly beloved.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered unto thee. I shall fear no evil. Thy rod and staff comfort me all the days of my life. Lay me down in green pastures. I can't remember anymore. Oh, yes, into the valley of the shadow of death rode the 600.
He mixes it up with Charge of the Light Brigade. That poem by Tennyson, which he's actually been referencing throughout the book. He's been talking about ours is not to
yes, that's right.
Why he's been saying that, and so at the end, of course, I mean, I imagine Briggs's point is that he's been sent, in a sense, by people that don't care about him.
Yes,
and should have cared about him.
Yes,
and of course, I think the original. Our edition stops there, but I understand there are versions that go for 4 completely black panels.
Oh, interesting.
To indicate that they've passed.
Huh, okay. Gosh, I think, well, it pretty much ends with, like,
they've died.
Yeah.
It's completely clear.
Yeah. There are some panels, some fantasy panels I want to point out when he does break out of the 7-tier grid. Like when he imagines a giant Russian attacking them.
Yes.
This guy with like bandoliers on and this big
mustache,
huge drooping
like a Fu Manchu,
covered in grenades and stuff. I think he's got skis on his back.
Huge spiked boots.
Yes. Or he imagines helping in London, and he's saving this beautiful girl.
This is very like the Gentleman Jim character from that other book I mentioned, who was always fantasizing about himself.
So it's usually only when they're reminiscing fondly about Stalin and stuff, you'll get a panel that's drawn in a different art style, which is kind of rounder, and like kind of hazy fantasy colors, and it'll be really large on the page. It'll take up a huge amount of the page.
Yes, it's like Churchill and Stalin and Roosevelt looking very sympathetic.
Yes.
And then you've got, like the Axis looking evil and sinister.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so is there anything else we need to cover in this?
In the comic?
Or
the book, or however they describe it.
yes.
I imagine it wasn't referred to as a book as a comic rather, despite meeting all the comics.
It says from the book by Raymond Briggs. It's the credit.
I have no doubt that the reason it made it into libraries was because people didn't consider it to be a comic. Because comics were not in libraries.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get at this movie, 1986, directed by Jimmy T. Murakami, sometimes credited as James T. Murakami.
Yes.
Interesting
fellow. He was a Nisei, Japanese-American.
Right.
Born in California.
Right.
He had, like an interesting life. He was interred as a child during the Second World War in the camps. He apparently worked for Toei Animation briefly in the 1950s.
Interesting.
And by the 60s, though, he'd established a production company with his business partner who was called Fred Wolf. And they were producing films and animation. Their production company eventually produced, and is most famous for, producing the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Yeah, right, yes.
I think he relocated to Ireland by the 70s or 80s and lived there for the rest of his life.
Okay.
But he would travel for work, including... he directed The Snowman, the other adaptation of Raymond Briggs's... one of the other adaptations of Raymond Briggs's books. And he directed this one.
And the opening sequence of Heavy Metal.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Because that makes him of interest.
Yes,
a person of interest.
A person of interest. That's a good way to describe it. I also want to point out that he did some live action movies for Roger Corman. Battle Beyond the Stars, but more importantly, the notorious added footage to Humanoids from the Deep, directed by Barbara Peters, which would have been a good movie if Roger Corman hadn't made Jimmy Murakami come in and shoot a bunch of boob scenes and stuff, which were spliced in arbitrarily into this movie.
Right, sounds terrible.
But
I was going to bring up the Battle Beyond the Stars, which is one of my favourite Corman films.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Humanoids from the Deep is
awesome Star Wars ripoff.
It's crazy, but it would have been. Barbara Peters was not happy about what Corman did to it.
Sure.
For sure. But anyway, so we got this movie. We've got our two actors are Peggy Ashcroft and John Mills. I don't really know them, but they seem to be like veteran British actors.
I read that everyone would have known their voices.
Right.
Apparently.
Okay.
Because they'd done so much work on film and television.
Yeah.
Especially by the 80s and certainly enormous amounts of theatre work.
Yeah, right.
They would have been among the most recognisable voices in the UK apparently around the time that this film came out.
Right.
And they're the only actors in it.
Yes. So it runs an hour 24, probably the right length given the length of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised it started out with some live action shots
of
military vehicles.
It actually does blend a lot of different visual media.
This was kind of a good opening because it leads you into the non-traditional animation that we get through the movie.
That's a good point. Although I take umbrage at the choice of music. So the music here... Look, I am a big fan of David Bowie, and I'm a big fan of Roger Waters.
Yeah.
Neither of whom should have been anywhere near this movie. Originally, David Bowie was supposed to do the score for the whole film.
Okay.
He agreed to do it. Apparently, a fan of Raymond Briggs' work.
Okay.
And eventually ended up contributing an introductory scene to the Snowman film.
Okay.
Partly through his agreeing to work on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
the original edition of The Snowman, it's about 20 minutes or so, The Snowman, and the original one that was screened on British television in the early 80s had an introduction by Raymond Briggs, him just sort of walking in a field. When they wanted to distribute it in the US, whoever, like the powers that be in the US were like, well, who's Raymond Briggs? You need someone, we want like someone famous to introduce this.
Right.
Like Mick Jagger.
Yeah, right.
Well, they couldn't get Mick Jagger, but they had and so there's David Bowie does the intro to The Snowman.
Okay.
He walks into an attic, he talks about like, he says, in my childhood I made a snowman, etc. So he was originally going to score the whole film and was keen to do it. But apparently he was under a lot of pressure from his record label to produce the follow-up to Let's Dance.
Yeah, okay. So
he only contributed a single, When the Wind Blows, which, when we were talking about this film the other week, I said, there's a David Bowie song called When the Wind Blows.
Right.
Never in a million years would I imagine the two were linked, because it's a terrible, terrible fit.
Yes, it's
jaunty, kind of.
And the song's not about what the movie's about.
Nope.
At all. He just uses that phrase, when the wind blows. I have to say my issue with it was more that I found that the opening David Bowie song and the end credits Roger Waters song were both very generic 80s songs for those guys.
Exactly.
When you said they wanted to follow up to Let's Dance, I was like, this is just like almost paint by numbers kind of stuff.
The song that plays over the credits by Roger Waters sounds like it should be on The Wall.
Yeah.
It sounds like a track from The Wall.
Yeah.
Like it's completely generic.
Yeah.
For his kind of like content, for like his like 80s Roger Waters, Pink Floyd oeuvre. I will say that during the film itself, the music's not too bad. There's very little music, actually.
There are some moments where you do get some ominous kind of stuff, which I didn't like. Like, for example,
with the rain,
after the bomb goes to go outside, and you see this glass that's melted, and the fields are all black, and then you get this dun-dun-dun, really doomy kind of music, and I was like,
this is bad? Yeah, we get that it's bad.
Yeah.
A nuclear bomb went off.
Yes. You don't really need that kind of projection.
I was underwhelmed by the music.
Yeah. But we start in the library.
Sorry, Roger Waters eventually stepped in and scored the film.
Okay, all right.
So he didn't just contribute that closing song.
Yes, right.
He scored the whole movie.
Yeah, that's right. So he's been reading newspapers at the library, Jimmy.
You remember how they used to have newspapers up on stands?
Yes, absolutely. And
I'd forgotten.
And he's coming home on the bus. Now, we get the opening credits over the bus sequence. This is not in the comic. In the comic, the opening page, he's at the library. Then the next page, the bus is dropping him off at home. This was a bit interesting because there's a young couple on the bus that is kind of making out, joking around.
Yeah.
They are way more oblivious than even he is. He's naive. They have no... I mean, there's a threat of... There's this international situation going on. Jimmy's aware of it. He's like, they say there might be a nuclear war in 3 days.
Yes.
But these kids are just like, haha, what fun. They're not... They have no idea about what's going on in the news at all.
Yes, this is sort of a thread that sort of runs through the film a bit, which I'm not sure maybe was because his son as well is like that too. And I think the film might even be saying that this is the better attitude than like to just live in the moment and care less about about the inconsistent messages you get.
Yeah, so in the comic and the movie, he calls his son when he needs to find out what a 60-degree angle is.
Yes.
And his son is not worried about going into a shelter or anything like that. We don't hear the son, we just get Jimmy's report on it.
Yeah.
But he seems to be like laughing, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
The son is kind of fatalistic.
Yes. Yes.
And
fatalistic, or just aware, perhaps, of the futility of trying to prepare for the nuclear
But these
apocalypse.
teens on the bus don't even know that there are other countries in the world, almost. They don't know... They're TikTokers or something like that. You know what I mean? They're young people that just are oblivious completely to the fact that they might be dead in 5 minutes. Anyway, then it mostly plays out the same.
Yes.
So
Very much
here's
the same. A lot of the dialogue is completely straight from...
A lot of the physical objects and locations are stop motioned into the movie.
This is interesting, yep. So they built models.
Yeah.
And then they layered the animation over the top of these models. And then so the house is a little physical model that they've built.
Right.
Because I saw behind the scenes footage, they've got it built. It's up. They've got a camera zooming through it. When things in that house move around, like when cabinets open or when cushions move about on the lean-to, they use stop motion to do that, not traditional animation. They don't draw and animate those cushions. They instead move them around using camera, using photos and camera, which is interesting. An interesting choice.
It's fun to look at.
It is.
Is it the right choice?
I don't know. I would say maybe not.
Huh.
It might be a bit distracting.
Yes.
I think the only thing I can say about one of the producers, or rather the producer, John Coates, in the behind-the-scenes documentary that I watched, said that he wanted to just do more with animation.
Yeah.
He wanted to make an experimental animation film. And this came across his desk, and he thought, great.
Right, okay.
We'll do it with this. Because there's even some computer animation in it. Some 1986...
Was it the planes flying over?
The planes and the sub.
That, yeah.
So, which in the comic were those full-page black, ominous, or very dark, ominous splashes. In the film, they've used some very, very early computer-generated imagery to make the submarine, or what have you. I don't think it really works. I can see they were going for something, I suppose, similar to the style of the comic, where there's such a massive art change.
This is a problem because it's really key. The comic is functioning in a very specific way, from going to the cramped panels to the ominous double-page spreads. Here we've got the full proscenium arch of the screen, which is the same size at all times.
Yeah.
They've got to find some sort of substitute, and they've tried to do it by the music and just the color of those screens, but then choosing to go with CGI at that time maybe makes it less ominous and more like
gimmicky.
Oh yes, gimmicky.
Yeah,
although at the time the audience would not have known that that's what was used.
Exactly. It's easy to say these things 40 years later, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so basically plays out the same, except for some weird
dream sequences.
So there's very early on, when he starts taking down the doors to build his lean-to, Hilda goes out into the garden and has this weird fantasy about becoming like a nude she's flying around naked with butterfly wings, like a fairy, through the dandelions as their seeds are dispersed, and it's drawn in this sketchy style.
Doesn't seem to serve any narrative function.
No, and I would say in the comic, Hilda has no imagination.
No.
At all.
Right.
And also, I think it's interesting because, to me, she also has no real sense of humor in the comic. And in the movie, she's always smiling when she says stuff.
Right.
Quite often. They've tried to make her more sympathetic. I found in the book, I was more sympathetic to Jimmy than to her. There's an interesting line about her grandfather.
Yep.
Where Jimmy says your grandfather was a Jew, and she's quite outraged at this.
Yep.
No, he wasn't. And then finally she has to admit, at least partly.
Only partly.
Only partly. Yeah. And then he says he saw a headline about what was it? Harmony between the races in a multi-ethnic society.
Yes, that's exactly.
But he doesn't understand what it means.
He just memorized it because he liked the words.
He thought it sounded nice.
Yep.
So anyway, in the book, I certainly felt more for him than her, because she was kind of very. I guess he was thick-headed, but she was very stubborn. Yes. And stuck in her ways. Yes. He had a kind of knowledge. It was very naive and stupid, but
he's dangerous because of his... Yes. There's something that's glossed over in both the comic and the film, but it's revealed almost in passing, and the film doesn't... Neither the film nor the comic spends any time on it or invites us to ask why this... invites us to linger on it, but I did. It's mentioned that there's a cellar.
Right.
They have a cellar.
Right.
And at one point, Hilda says, wouldn't we not, after they've started to get sick, Hilda says, might we not have been better off in the cellar?
Yeah.
And Jim instantly dismisses it.
Right.
He says something about his rheumatism because he has an answer for everything.
Yeah.
But what he's really saying is the pamphlet didn't mention a cellar.
Yeah, right.
Look, it's the apocalypse. They wouldn't really have been any better off in the cellar.
Yeah.
But
it's better.
You can't help but think it would have been better than a couple of doors and the pillows. Yeah.
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 So
somehow this movie is like giving her this inner fantasy life and a sense of humor.
Okay, good. I mean, it expands her character a bit. Okay.
I guess. Yeah.
Doesn't really serve any narrative purpose, but
yes. So we get the fantasy sequence about Stalin and stuff. That's done in a different art style, as it was in the comic.
We get them reminiscing about the war.
This plays out a bit differently because we get actual footage.
Yep.
And it's hard to be nostalgic about the footage. So I think
it's deliberate.
Underlining the irony.
Yes.
As opposed to just letting us, the audience in the comic, say, these people are reminiscing about the Blitz and air raids and fires.
We do see their nostalgic point of view because we see, like, the lovely, like the Anderson shelter out in the yard that had, like, primroses growing on it.
And they painted it green or whatever. Yeah.
And it looks like for a child, it would be awesome, like an amazing cubby house. And then we see his, the indoor ones, which were kind of like wire cages.
Yeah.
That he'd put all his pin-ups in and he was reading in it by candlelight. And it all just seems like a jolly good... But then the film deliberately introduces footage of, like tanks and guns and... and Churchill, like, waving his arms around and other political figures. I think you're right. I think it's to underline the irony.
Yes. Maybe I'm just wondering if it was necessary to underline it in film versus the comic, maybe.
Well, I think no.
Okay.
But I think if you're going... this comes down to adaptation. I can't fault them for making this choice.
Right.
Because you had to do something in order to differentiate the film from the source material.
Sure.
But I also agree that it doesn't really add anything...
Yeah.
It doesn't add any nous or any pathos, really.
It's interesting that Briggs was the age that these people are. He would have been 10 during those times, and he's obviously not nostalgic about it. He's very clear-headed about it.
No. No. And yet but he's also basing these characters on his parents.
Yeah.
As well, who presumably... I don't know how you could be an adult in the Blitz and be nostalgic about it, but...
Yeah.
We might have to watch Ethel and Ernest.
That's right, yeah. Okay, another interesting thing here. At some point, there's a sequence where Jimmy talks about what will happen if there's an invasion or after the bombs. And he talks about how the Americans will come in, they'll force democracy on the Russians, whether they like it or not. All this kind of stuff.
And thus the communist threat will be nutified.
Yes. That is in the comic. It's in the movie as well, but in the movie, again, it's done in a more fantastic way.
Yep.
So I think in the comic, there's a panel where he's got his arms out as if he's a jet fighter flying in. Here we get, like, lights, machine gun sounds, all that kind of stuff.
It's made like he's playing make-believe.
Yes.
It undermines his... it makes him seem more ridiculous.
Yes.
Not necessarily an improvement.
By the way, in this version, also in the comic, I didn't notice it. I read it twice, but you never see the front of the pamphlet, which has a mushroom cloud on it. Whereas in the movie, there's a very clear mushroom cloud on the front of the pamphlet.
Really? Okay.
Which, to me, I thought if that was on there, he should have been more worried. That should have been a bigger.
So it had a mushroom cloud on the front, did it?
Yeah.
The pamphlet, that must have been, maybe that was the made up local council one. Because Protect and Survive had a very distinctive cover, which is a circle with a man and a woman and a child standing inside the circle.
Okay.
And you often see this reproduced.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, no indication of the danger.
No.
Right.
Like, the government was excoriated over these pamphlets, like the ludicrousness of it. And, they weakly insisted that, you weren't supposed to see them yet. They were supposed to go out as part of a kind of like a multi-platform informational blitz. It was supposed to be on television and radio. Mm-hmm. The pamphlets were just a part of it. But actually, no. That just made it worse. Yeah. It was absurd that they were trying to tell citizens how to prepare for the end of the world.
Yeah. the paper bags. We didn't even talk about the paper bags, because it's key to the ending of the movie as well. At some point, he read somewhere that if you're in a paper bag, it offers more protection. Maybe it was in this government pamphlet.
Right.
So they had these potato sacks, paper potato sacks, and he actually puts one on the bottom and one on top.
Yeah, it looks...
He's like, this must be what it feels like to be a potato.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, one of the ironies in their death is they have both climbed into these potato sacks.
When it's way too
so
late.
So they're in potato
sacks. Not that it did anything.
They're dying in potato sacks
yes.
as he's saying this prayer in the dark as the lights are going out.
Yep.
Okay, so the bomb happens. Very dramatic in this movie.
It's different to the book.
Very dramatic. We get all sorts of shots of the city crumbling. They've changed the animation style, so it's almost like line art.
Yeah,
pencil drawings. It's just pencil drawings, and you see like cars being blown over. A train gets derailed.
Yep.
Falls off a bridge. That's 2 weeks in a row of that.
Yes.
And
yes,
all this kind of stuff happening. Then we get this sequence where we come to the house. There's an old wedding photo of them on the wall, and we get a kind of sepia tone flashback to
Story
their
of
wedding,
yeah,
and all this stuff, and then the portrait shatters from
Teapot
the
hits it.
shockwave. If again, we need to underline everything with some kind of obvious symbology, which there isn't any of in the book.
No,
in the book, it's all just irony.
Yeah,
there is no symbolism.
Yeah, yes, that's quite right. That's quite right. So then another thing is once after this has finished and they're in their lean-to, the devastation is very obvious.
Oh yeah, because we get pans. The camera's panning around the house. You see all the stuff on the floor, the shattered windows. Everything is destroyed and black. It's just soot black.
Well, they built this model and they want to show it off.
Yes.
So this is another... As we mentioned, this is a big difference from the comic where they use those small panels. It's kind of hard to see the scale of any kind of destruction. And you get the impression that this is something of a cozy catastrophe.
Yes. You're kind of stuck in the scale of their thoughts.
Yes.
Effectively.
But in the film, it's undeniable what's happening. Like, it looks like Terminator, like the future in Terminator.
Exactly.
And it makes their insistence on doing things...
Tidying up for visitors.
On business as usual. It makes it ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was faintly ridiculous in the comic, but now it's patently absurd in the film.
Yes.
And I think which robs it of some of its emotional depth.
Yeah, I agree. Because we get, full shots of this house. It is bizarre.
They go outside and it's like a nightmare-scape. Like,
yeah.
And they're putting out lawn chairs and things.
Yeah.
And, there are these musical stings that Roger Waters put in to make it like this is a horror.
Yeah.
This is hell on earth.
Yeah.
And yet they're bumbling about...
Yeah.
Talking about going down to the store tomorrow. It's like, sorry, you can't reconcile this behaviour with what we're seeing.
Yeah. Another weird sequence here, there's a panel in the comic where he lists off all the acronym agencies that are going to protect them in event of nuclear holocaust, including NORAD, ROC,
NATO, etc.
NATO, AWCS, Airborne Warning and Control Systems, NCA, National Command Authority. All these, when he lists them off in the comic, you're like, all these people were supposed to protect you.
Yes.
There are a dozen organizations that were supposed to protect you from this happening, and all you got was this shitty pamphlet that did nothing for you. In the movie, it's handled very strangely.
I agree.
We get all of the acronyms on screen, like NCA or NORAD, doesn't explain what they are, and the volume is dropped down way low, so you can barely hear his explanations for these things. It doesn't have the same effect of...
not at all.
It's more
robbed
confusing.
Of rhetorical force.
In the comic, I felt angry at those organizations for not helping them.
Yeah.
Here, I was like confused. What does NCA mean? What does AMC mean?
Yeah. In the comic, it's clear that these organizations did the opposite.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, clear, but it's implied that these organizations did the opposite of what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They caused, all of this posturing and these things made him less safe than...
Yeah.
And yet he has this confidence in them. In the film, I admit, I don't understand what's going on in this scene. His voice drops right out.
Yeah.
He's almost not in it.
Yeah.
And we just get a lot of...
Letters on screen.
It almost feels like some experimental filmmaking. I'm just going to throw this sequence in here to give my animation team something different to do.
Yes. Yeah, there are moments like that in this movie where they're just looking for visual differentiation. just for the audience.
Yeah, well put.
Okay, so...
Yeah, it plays out much the same. He's always talking about doing the correct thing. We must do the correct thing, he says over and over. The water and electricity's off. He decides it's because of rationing or the redirection of resources, not because of what it obviously is, which is that you're an island of... you're an island of survival in a sea of nuclear horror.
Yeah. Now, Hilda has another fantasy here, another dandelion seed fantasy. This one seems to be about souls rising from graves and going up to heaven.
Yeah, she's thinking about her parents. Is it her parents?
Maybe.
Because they just had the discussion about the funerals.
Oh, right.
But it doesn't serve any narrative purpose. Again, I think it's just to give the animation team something different to do.
Yeah, and then there's all these, like, cherubs in the sky, and it's very like stained glass windows. I don't know what any of this stuff really was about. And I'm not even sure, even if they're trying to give more to Hilda, I'm not sure what it gave her. Like, how is it...
No, I don't think it's improved.
What we learned about her from this fantasy life, which doesn't play out in her real life. It doesn't manifest in any way in her real life. She doesn't say, oh, I wish we could just fly up in the sky or something like that. We don't get any sense of that. They're getting sick at this stage because they've come out and they've forgotten they weren't supposed... Well, they were going to get sick anyway, but...
I think they probably already absorbed a dose,
oh, yeah, 100%,
even inside,
100%.
behind the doors, but... Of course, they go out and they go out in the yard and...
It's a wasteland. It's a black wasteland.
You could not look at this landscape. In the comic, they just say things like, oh, the grass is dead. Oh, the leaves have come off the apple tree.
Yeah.
You could, with the smallness of the panels, you can believe that they're in sufficient denial.
Yeah.
That they're just not seeing odd signs.
Yeah.
Here, there's no suspension of disbelief that means that they could look at this and see anything but the end of the world. Because it's black.
Yeah.
Everything's black as pitch. Nothing's moving. Nothing's alive. The sky is full of these horrible black clouds.
I think they hear a dog barking.
Yeah.
Which they don't in the comic, I don't think.
I don't remember, but they hear a dog and...
But they talk about the roasting. They smell the roasting meat.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't quite work because you...
And also, when they say, I haven't seen no trains, no traffic, you can kind of suspend disbelief about that in the comic. But in the movie, we've already seen the cars crashing. We've seen the trains go off the rails, off the bridges.
Good point.
So it's like, oh, these people are really stupid because we've seen that.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, they're just late.
That's right.
Or they're taking the day off because of the bomb.
You're quite right. Yeah. Because they showed us those things occurring.
Yeah.
Unlike the comic, where we just get that great comic storytelling device where it fades to white.
Yeah. They put out sun chairs in both versions. Really hard to believe in this version because there's no sun. And it starts to rain, as in the comic, to try to save some water.
It's made very obvious that this rain is bad news with some music stings.
Yep.
To tell us that the rain is bad rain.
Yep. He fantasizes about saving, if he was in the city, how he'd be volunteering and saving girls. This was fine because it's in the comic, but then we get a weird sequence where he says, I was supposed to meet Johnny at the pub today.
And we see him playing darts.
And he picks up a piece of glass and we get a fantasy of him playing darts in the glass.
Something for the animation team to do.
Yeah.
That's going to be my go-to explanation for anything I don't
get. Like, here's an interesting visual. He will fantasize about playing darts, and it's going to be projected onto this piece of shattered glass.
It's just another one of his example of him denying, like, no different from going... Why didn't we get a visual of him going to the corner shop?
Of course.
And trying to buy...
Exactly. That's it.
Blood and bone.
Why this moment in particular? Why does it have to be projected onto a piece of broken glass?
Because it wasn't present in the comic.
Is it supposed to be extra ironic that it's on broken glass? Shattered dreams, literal?
Maybe. Maybe.
We get the fantasy about the Russian coming in. I think that works pretty well. It reminded me of the stormtroopers in American Werewolf in London when they barge into the house.
That didn't even occur to me.
It's a bit like that.
It is a bit like
big giant Russian guy just barges into their house with his machine gun and stuff.
He's horrified at the idea of being offered tea. He evaporates.
Yes.
And she says, the Russians love tea, which I suppose is a reference to Russian caravan tea.
Oh, right. And he's like, well, that would be collaborating.
They'll shave our heads.
Yeah. They're having trouble eating now because of vomiting, diarrhea.
I've gone right off food, they keep saying.
Yeah. They have there's a scene in both versions with this fruit pastille that they cut in half to share between them.
They talk about, like how aspirin isn't helping their crook.
Yeah.
They keep having diarrhea and vomiting. They're lying on the couches. They have no energy anymore. They can't do anything except lie still. And yet Jim just keeps up this constant patter about how everything's going to be fine. The powers that be is going to get to us in the end. He keeps saying over and over, Oh,
it's natural we should be tired after a bomb.
Yes.
We'll be fine.
Yeah. This is just normal. It's a terrific shock.
Terrific shock.
Going through a bomb like this.
Yeah.
She says, I would like to go to the chemist and get some more of those pastilles for my throat. And then there's almost, reality almost breaks through because Jim says, and maybe I can convince him to sell some water.
Yeah.
Something the chemist doesn't usually sell.
Yeah. In the comic, at this point, she comes running down the stairs and says there's a rat in the toilet. In the movie, we see the rat in the toilet.
Almost a bit of a jump scare, almost.
Yeah. Bit like that. I think it goes from the fruit pastille that they're cutting in half to rat in the toilet. Don't know if it's quite a long sequence where she describes it and he comes up the stairs to help her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard to decide with a lot of the choices in this movie if they were okay or not okay.
I didn't really same.
Yeah.
Have a very deliberate emphasis from that previous scene to this scene with a bit of a rat.
Yeah.
Like it was almost in the comic. It was almost like the rat was dead.
Yeah. Right.
You didn't get a sense that the rat was alive because she just saw its tail sticking out of the drain.
Yeah.
And it was just another example of, like, you care about a rat dead in your toilet when you're probably going to be dead tomorrow.
Yeah.
But here we get, the rat itself gets a dramatic musical sting. We see it moving. Odd choice.
Yeah.
I want to animate something that isn't two old people.
Yeah.
Now you can animate a rat.
Yeah. It seems a bit like that. So we get the hair falling out and stuff, and the boils, the lesions on their skin, etc., all that kind of stuff. They climb into the potato sacks.
Yeah.
And then they climb into their lean-to, and the sequence ends with the kind of close-up on the lean-to. The camera moves into it, and then it gets kind of covered in these clouds.
Yeah. Well, we sort of get a narrowing of the...
Yeah.
Like an irising. It gets blacker and blacker, like that.
Yeah.
Like when it's a common cinematic device, right? Where someone's passing out or something.
Yeah.
It's getting contracting to a single point.
That's right.
Then we get as you say, we sort of get clouds in
a black sky.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is.
And he's saying the prayer as this is happening, and it's like live action clouds, not animated clouds. You've got footage of clouds going past, and the light on their lean-to is just becoming this pinprick in the distance.
That's it.
And then it turns into a blue sky and sunshine, where the light on the lean-to turns into the sun.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's blue skies and happy days.
So they've gone to heaven.
I guess.
Another odd choice. And their voices are there still, but there's all this music, and the voices are quite quiet.
Yeah.
The film often has their voices fading out almost to inaudibility.
Yes, especially if they go into another room or something. They've actually made the voices quieter so you can't hear that person's in the kitchen or something like that.
Strange choices. But yeah, that's pretty much so. But his last words are about the 600.
Yeah. Down
into the valley went the 600, and then the film basically the credits start, and Roger Waters'
weird 80s pop song is there.
Starts.
Yeah. All right, what's our trivia?
I don't have a lot of trivia.
Okay.
Aside from watching the documentary, there's not a huge amount of material online about this. Wikipedia quotes a figure of $5,274 as the box office receipt. That's completely wrong.
Okay.
And apparently it's just its American release, which was in a single theatre.
Okay.
So I have no idea how this did in the UK, but it did have a theatrical release in the UK.
Okay.
And I don't know, probably did fine, especially considering that The Snowman came out 3 or 4 years earlier and was a huge hit. Although that was on television.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned John Coates, the producer, earlier. In the documentary I watched, there was a funny story. He'd finished producing The Snowman, and so he's a fan of Raymond Briggs' work, and he notices he's got a new book out. This is around Christmas time. Apparently, he said, quote, "I bought it and decided to read it hoping it would cheer me up." He goes on to say his wife found him crying And the very next day, he called up Briggs asking for the rights. Yeah. Briggs himself said that he watched a documentary, at the time. Everyone's worried about nuclear holocaust in the 80s, as we've established.
Absolutely.
Even John Burgeon was, because the nuclear holocaust, obviously...
Yeah.
I mean, that came out... From Inside came out in 93, but he was already thinking about it earlier. He'd seen a documentary. I don't think it was Threads, because he probably would have remembered if it was Threads. But he said he saw a documentary, and then I think the day or two later he had a dinner party, and his guest jokingly said, "I've got the topic of your next book. It's the documentary we watched the other night." Jokingly, it being the exact opposite of the kind of book he would normally write, because he was a children's author.
Yeah.
But I don't know, he took it to heart.
Yeah.
He said it inspired him, and he was up nights thinking about what Jim would do, and he said he did a lot of research, about 2 shelves worth of research on looking at the various pamphlets and various books about that kind of thing. So it really captured his imagination, and he ran away with it. That's about it for trivia.
Okay. All right, let's go into voting then.
Very good.
All right, this comic...
it's yay for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's incredibly moving.
Yeah.
Beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
And funny in a making you cry kind of way.
Yeah.
But also very, very moving and upsetting and frustrating, and it just makes you just so upset about it. Like these were people that are supposed to be looked after.
Yeah.
I mean, by modern standards, by 80s standards, they were elderly, right? They were at the point in their lives where they were supposed to be rewarded for the work that they'd done, how for their contributions, right, to society. And instead of being looked after, they were left alone in the countryside to die a terrible death.
Yeah.
By the people that were supposed to protect them, and the acronyms that were supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
It's by the end of the book when they begin to look like ghosts and are terribly sick. It's unbearably moving.
Yeah. Even the art goes look almost white.
Yeah.
That page where
all the colours bleached out of it.
and bleeding and stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, great book. Absolutely.
Remarkable comic.
Yeah. This movie, I'm going to give it a yay.
Okay.
People talk about this movie. They're still talking about it. They talk about it more than the comic. I hear it mentioned all the time.
Really?
People talk about it the same way they talk about Watership Down. As this cartoon they saw as a kid that
my parents mistakenly rented this from the video store.
They let me watch Watership Down. I think it is good, but it's one of those things that's... I guess this is leaking into adaptation.
Sure.
But I think if you haven't read the comic and you watch this movie, the movie is fine. It's got weird choices in it, like the fantasy fairy sequence. They're like, that's strange. It's not really that long in the movie, but it annoyed us because it's not in the comics. So even if it's 5 seconds long, it's like, what's it doing in here? So I think I think a lot of people have seen the movie and not read the comic, and they are into it because of that. I mean, I think it's decent. I think it still basically gets
the message across.
With some mistakes that we're only aware that they are mistakes because of the comic.
That's a good point. That's the challenge. How do I do my vote for film without bleeding over into adaptation? It's a weekly difficulty that we have.
Well, I will leak my adaptation is a nay.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But my comic and movie are both yays.
Okay, in my notes I've got nay for the film.
Okay.
But I pretty much agree with you, again, with most of what you said. I just, with a slight emphasis on the flaws as opposed to the virtues.
Yeah.
You know, the music's not a great fit. There are some odd choices with when the dialogue fades out.
Yeah.
And...
Or the utter stupidity of them looking at a black landscape. Well, this is the biggest issue.
Same. That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Like, the comic is such a great... Again, I'm bleeding into adaptation, but the comic is a good fit for the story of the couple that couldn't admit that the apocalypse was real.
Yeah.
Because I could believe that when I had postage stamp signs panels.
Yeah.
But of course in the film, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Because it's like I kept expecting a Terminator to walk over the horizon and step on a human skull.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't agree. I agree with everything you're saying. It's just that I tend more towards nay than
okay.
But for adaptation, I'm also nay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, same reasons. Yeah. I think definitely was not able to adapt the tone, the ironic tone. Instead, it's going for something else.
For sure. I feel like this is like a perfect comic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really. This is a story that's perfect for comics.
Yeah.
For the comic medium as a way to tell it. And I just don't... I mean, they did their best. I mean, they made some gratuitous choices, it feels like. But also they adapted it almost like completely wholesale. Like they just took the dialogue from the comic and put it into the film. But it was perfectly suited for a comic. The way that they show the explosion in the comic is great. The way that they show the denouement at the end with the comic is great.
Yeah. Perfectly
suited. The way that they tell, like I said, with the little... What would be a better fit for like a tiny little panel than to show like a tiny little perspective of these people who had, unfortunately, because of their circumstances, had less education than, say, another person.
Yeah.
That same storytelling now couldn't be carried over to the film medium. So, no.
All right. Okay, so please like, rate, review, subscribe on whatever your platform is. I did figure out that the reason we need them on Apple Podcasts is because those reviews show up on other feeds. Like if you go to Podbay, our reviews on there are the ones from Apple Podcasts. Oh, and by the way, somebody has given us 5 stars on Pocket Casts, which is the app I use, so whoever did that.
Amazing.
Thank you. Please contact us through our email address, which is in the show notes, or you can send us a DM on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, or comment on YouTube, or we now have a Reddit.
Threads. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Threads.
Sorry, I cut you off. This is big news. The subreddit.
Yes, we have a subreddit. I'm trying to get out of the Facebook. I'm trying to get off those meta platforms.
Indeed.
I don't know if Reddit is better or worse. I don't know if we'll have any more engagement. At least I know you're reading the posts now, which we're not on Facebook. So
no,
maybe we'll have some more.
We have had some engagement.
It's actually I've been wanting to kind of keep a blog or something instead of the Facebook. This is actually a great substitute. It's really fun posting memes and stuff on there that are movie related. So if you want anybody else wants to get on there,
it's been up for like 48 hours and it's already got like a dozen posts. So.
Yeah, it's good. It's great fun, so please get on there. Yeah. That link will be in the show notes from here on out as well. And please join our Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion, all one word. Okay, next week we're going to do a movie called Mead, M-E-A-D. Came out, I'm going to say 2024, maybe 2023, based on a comic by Richard Corbin and Jan Sternad from 1972 called To Meet the Faces You Meet, which appeared in Fever Dreams issue 1.
This is a big gap between comic and film.
Yeah.
Next week, tune in next week to find out if it's the biggest gap.
Yeah, it's an underground, and but you can probably find it online. I'm guessing you'll be able to just Google around, look for Fever Dreams or To Meet the Faces You Meet, and that's probably all the setup. I think the movie is probably streaming somewhere. It was a Kickstarter, but it's probably in Prime or something like that.